For this tutorial, we're going to be here in Shot Designer, which, as I've talked about a bunch of times in these filmmaking courses, is just one of my favorite apps for filmmaking. Back in the pre-production course, and again in the directing course, we talked about the basics of Shot Designer. So if you want more detailed info on the app itself, then go check out those courses. Now, for this, I'm going to be on the desktop version of Shot Designer, but I frequently use a mobile device like my iPad, for example, when I'm sitting down with directors to work this stuff out. Here we're going to look at how we cross the line in the goodbye scene. Sometimes you'll need to do this for, whatever reason. So let's dissect this scene and talk about where the line is, why we wanted to cross it, and how we did that. So I'm just going to start from scratch by clicking the New Scene button here. And we're given these two circles which represent an aerial view of two characters. And since we're recreating the goodbye scene, this totally works. I'm going to click once to select this left character and then click again to get some options. From this list, I'm going to choose Add Label, and I'm going to name this one Tayani. That's Eva Jane's character. And I'll also name this character on the right Cordeya, the little girl played by Natty. Now, just for reference, I'm going to hold down my mouse button and choose Add Prop. Then I'll select this big tree here, let's say, and I'll stretch this out from the sides. Now, obviously, this looks absolutely hideous, of course, but it represents the big river down here so we can just get our bearings and know where we are. It doesn't have to look pretty. Now I'm going to hold down my mouse button again and create a couple of cameras this time. Click on this little stem here to rotate it. Basically, I just want to create cameras that represent the reverses on Tayani and Cordeya. Now the 180-degree line is between the two actresses as they talk. If we set up on this side of the line, then when they're looking at the river, we'd only see the backs of their heads. That's not great. Also, in the shooting version of the film, we wanted to see the villains in the background, so we shot from this side of the line. However, at the end of the scene, Tayani runs away this way, and Cordeya is left by herself. So if we stayed over here the entire time, then we'd only see the backside of Cordeya's head, and that's not great either. We want to see her reaction to being abandoned. So to get from this side of the line to the other side, we kind of have to get creative. The solution we ended up using in the final version of the film is to cut on Tayani's movement and frame the shot so that Tayani was in the same approximate place in the frame. Tayani is so big in the frame that the movement covers up the shift in the line. Now, I think this works, but this isn't usually the most elegant solution. So another option is to use head-on shots. When you shoot head-on, like in a two-shot or straight into a character, like directly in front of them, it kind of resets the line. Remember that the point of the line is to preserve spatial continuity. So when we see two characters in a two-shot, and then we see from behind those two characters, it does cross the line, but it totally makes sense. We saw the front of them, and now we're seeing the back of them. And that can be another way of crossing the line effectively. And one other method to cross the line is to have the characters cross the line in camera. In other words, have them move over it in the shot. This is kind of what happens at the end of the goodbye scene. As we cross the line goes left to right across the screen. But then Tayani crosses in front of the camera, and now the line goes from Cordeya to, wherever Tayani is off screen to the left. And honestly, it's probably easier to see the line back here in Shot Designer, which is why I love using it so much. This is actually the final scene diagram that I made for this scene in The Assurance. You can see the line here from the main conversation they have in this scene. And when we cross the line, we're using the camera J here, shot J. This pink arrow represents the movement of Tayani as she says goodbye to Cordeya. Because she crosses the line, it creates a new line here. Now, because of the emotional intensity of the scene, we didn't want to cut back to wide shots to reorient the viewers to the space. And oftentimes, lots of close-ups like this can be disorienting to viewers, which is why we cut back to wide shots periodically. But I think this scene still works because we obeyed the line. So it can be a confusing challenge respecting the line, and it can be even more confusing trying to move the line or trying to cross the line. But it can be done if needed. And if it's done well, your audience won't even notice.